Welcome back, my old subscribers. Today we're talking about Dehancer. This is a software that is not new at all, but it is my first time using it. So I want to walk you through my experience going through it from scratch and sharing my thoughts. And if you're interested, check it out.
This is the Macro Marvin channel, where he'll share his passion for photography, videography, watches, cats, cars, and much more. Enjoy and thank you for watching.
Welcome back, my little subscribers. In this video, I'm going to show you some examples of using Dehancer. Up front, Dehancer reached out to me, gave me the opportunity to test their software. They're not paying me to say anything. They're not telling me what to say. They wanted an honest review. That was very clear when they reached out. So here I am. This is actually my first time using Dehancer. I had always been interested in it, but I had never tried it myself. I hadn't put the investment in. So this was a great opportunity for me to learn something new from scratch and give you that perspective. That is where I'm coming from. Someone who's never used this before and just jumping in to see what I can do. Within the 2 or 3 weeks that I've had the software and I've been playing around with it, using different video formats, whether it was S-Log3 or using footage from the iPhone or footage straight out of camera with no log, just Rec 709. This video is to show you what I've been able to get with just a few tweaks and playing around and getting to learn what each piece, each setting does. Now for background, Dehancer's been around for a while at this point. It's just been one of those names that is signature. The name Dehancer kind of gives you the sense that you're lowering the enhancement. Maybe that's in reference to what modern photography and film has become, where everything's just too perfect, too clean, like it doesn't look natural all the time. This software, what I've really gotten out of it over the last couple weeks is that it can give a subtle look or a strong look, depending on what you want to do. And it can get your image where you want to get it to look more film-like, more cinematic. Starting off with picking the film type, picking the film grain, halation, bloom, film breadth, the damage, overscan, all these settings and exposure to contrast. If you're used to grading footage, you're already involved in doing a lot of the tweaks to do color grading. This takes it a bit further, where it's been simplified for you. So I see this as a tool to help you color grade. And as you'll see in my example, you're looking through, you're picking which film you like, what is the output look. You're able to tweak every single aspect of it. So whether it is the compression of how much the highlights and dark, the blacks are dark and how white the whites are white, as simple as that, or as custom as you want, basically, because when you're modifying, for example, the film grain, which is kind of like noise but a little bit better because it's detailed, you can customize all of it and emulate what it would look for different types of film. So in this example that you see on screen, I basically had to play with every single lever here that I had, every single section, to see what is it doing. And I think that's something fun that I got out of this. If you're new to Dehancer or you're looking to change the look of how your videos come off, this could be a good tool for you. And I basically had fun with it. I played with the different settings, learning what they each do. It comes with a great guide to give you an idea. So I wanted to put it into use and learn that way. So you can do everything from modifying colors. The cool thing is you choose your base. It is very similar to when you're shooting film. You pick your film stock, you go from there when you're developing it. So when it comes to the noise, because we're in the digital world, we're just able to do a lot more now. With halation, very interesting. This is different from bloom, and I didn't know that before. Halation is kind of like that chromatic aberration in a way, or some of that red, that spherical, those aberrations that come out when the light hits something bright. That gives it kind of like a pop look too. So depending on how strong you want that, you can control that. The bloom effect, I think a lot of people are used to. That's basically how our highlights bloomed, spread out. And then we've got all the exposure control. So I think they've made it very intuitive in a way that you can just plug in and play. Now, in this experiment, I tried using it in log. So this is S-Log3 footage. I then got a little fancier and wanted to see what would happen if I wasn't in log. So I went back, converted it first, so S-Log3 into 709, and then did the same thing, the same process to see if I would get a similar result. So it's interesting here, I went over, removed all the settings, converted it first. I converted that to the standard Rec 709. Then I started applying the Dehancer tool. Started tweaking it to see if I would get different colors, different looks. What I can say, comparing after doing S-Log3 versus S709 or like iPhone footage, you will get very different results. So you do have to keep in mind, I think I did have I had a bit more freedom with the S-Log3 because it's integrated. It's converting it to 709 for you. So I don't think you need to do that extra step. I just wanted to play around and see. If I'd get something different. And as you can see, I think the variation between editing 709 versus a log profile was that I had to mess a little bit more with the contrast and the sort of the white balance image, the white balance overall coming out of the image. So I'd say I would prefer to do a log, but if you can't, it doesn't mean you can't use any of these. You can still modify it with 709, as you'll see in later examples. Now, the cool thing about this process was that once I committed to a color, it was more about, or film stock, it was more about how do I now want to enhance that. So how filmic do I want to go? How strong of an effect? And the great thing is you can control every single aspect. So even after you've done the entire process, let's say I don't want grain, I do want bloom, I don't want halation, or if I do want halation, it's just a subtle hit. You can basically, like when you're editing a LUT or applying a LUT and applying the strength of the LUT, you can, under output, play around with how strong of an effect you want that to do. So the benefit here would be to use the output. I think it's more beneficial to do that. In log, I think it would be a subtle decrease. If you're editing 709 and you go to output, I think that one would be more of a gradual, because 709 will already have its own color. Now, the bonus thing is there's a phone app, and this was awesome that they let me try this out too. Just like the plugin on the computer, you can pick the input. So I'm imagining you can use this as well on the iPad, which would have been great if I had that handy to put some log footage. But the cool thing is in the app you can do photo and video. So here you see a good example of what this looks like with a photo. And it looks very subtle because we're looking at it on a bigger screen even though the phone is smaller. But just as much detail, attention to detail. I love the app. I think when you're editing on the go, this is really great, and you can save your edits as presets so that you can apply them later. So I think this is a great option as well for on-the-go edits for content creation or video, which I'll get to right now. The cool thing that I also found about the app was that I could edit RAW. So I downloaded raw photos from my camera to my phone, and I was just as happy with the results. My recommendation after trying both, using final images and raw images and then editing them through this, would be that I would do minor tweaks in RAW if you're shooting RAW to make sure your subject stands out the way you want them, and then go to Dehancer. If your subject is well lit and there's nothing else to do, you can go straight to Dehancer. I think that's just the only caveat I would put, because I want to make sure the subject stands out. So you'll see here, you even got clipping. It's just such a useful app. and tons of settings. I was amazed. That's why I did several screenshots playing around with the phone because I wanted to see what everything did. I think Dehancer's doing great with what they're offering. It's giving us the opportunity to customize a lot, and it's part of the fun to mess with the image, with the colors, to get that final look that you're looking for. So here I went with a little subtle filmic look. There is some grain in there. Colors are a little bit more muted. Now on this one, the original image was already pretty magenta, so I needed something to counter it. So you'll see I end up emphasizing more of the greens, more like a Kodak gold style, I guess, with the greens. And like I said, you can edit everything, which makes this really awesome, a really useful tool. Once you figure out what each thing does, which is what the first thing I did was, I needed to learn what everything does. Once you do that, you'll understand how the image is impacted. So I see this as a very neat tool. If you have a series of images that have similar lighting, I'd say this is a good option for batch editing. Otherwise, I would stick to Lightroom if you're doing batch editing. But if you're doing a couple shots here and there and you're not delivering a huge amount at a time, or it's a very specific look you're going for, this is a great option because you can take your time with it and look at the final result. You get something a lot softer looking, in terms of like colors and just how the image comes off. It's not so much the sharpness that I'm talking about. Here's an example with video. Now this is straight out of camera from the iPhone. I did not have high expectations for this, although it was broad daylight, so definitely was getting enough light. But as you know, shutter speeds go way up, and the iPhone's not really great for that. But nonetheless, I wanted to see what can I tweak in color and all those other settings on there. Like how subtle would I want to go? How strong an effect did I want? What are those special looks I can get here to make basic iPhone footage stand out a little bit more? So in this example, I was still learning to use it. So I I activated everything. I wanted to see how it worked. Like it as stylized as possible. This is what I was getting. And I tried 2 exports. I did one with regular speed, which was at 30p. And then I went and exported an 8p, 8 frame per second version to kind of see those old school, more choppier look. And you'll see that right now. So here's the final footage right now. So this is the standard. Very stylized, but again, if you're doing a project and you want to make something look older, this is perfect. So that's standard 30p, 30 frames per second. These moves are crazy, but as you'll see, it's very interesting to look at, and I think it has its own style now versus just being plain iPhone footage. The squareness also kind of gives it that throwback look. You can control that too, so it doesn't have to be as square as it looks here. Okay, and then this clip is coming to an end, and you'll see how it looks in the 8 frame per second. It should be choppier, reminiscent of those handheld cameras, video cameras that we used to have. Here we go. So very different, a lot more old school. So this could fit in so many creative ways, giving you this freedom. I'm not saying you can't do this with other software, but it's just easier because all the settings are at your fingertips. All right, I'll cut it right there. Here I went back to photo again. This one, if I remember correctly, I did from RAW. And I like this image a lot because it gave me the silhouette vibe. So I was like, this is perfect for black and white to be very moody. And I do love black and white. So this one was a perfect option here. And you'll see, you play with the different functions. See how the image reacts until you get the hang of it. It's like with anything, you got to learn it. But I like that the tools here are very different from what you would use in Lightroom or like in Luminar. They're very specific, but I would say they're on point. Maybe a couple of them I wasn't still quite sure what they were doing, but seeing the immediate feedback was also great. So I'd say their app is very responsive to the changes you're adding, and there's not really a delay. Yeah, some of them I was trying to figure out what are they doing, and some were such subtle settings that it was just interesting to look at it. Here are the final. This is the final image. You could see the detail is still very well retained. I could see myself printing these, especially after stylizing them like that. So I went from something very modern and clean, ordinary, to something with a lot of style, like something that a little bit more memorable. And that attention to detail, I think, is what I really enjoy from this. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're interested in what you saw, go ahead and go to Dehancer.com and use Macro Marvin for a discount. Thanks for watching.